Breath framework. B, begin where you are. R, reclaim your power. E, excavate your core values. A, allow, not control. T, through, not around. And H, healing. The breath framework, a way of life.
So that's the intro, right? Like we put a lot of time and energy into getting this done, and DJ Durante created that for us, who's
beautiful.
A client of ours, and she's extremely talented. And I hate intros, so the fact that I remembered to do it is a miracle. I think I'm just terrified of her killing me. So today is about allow.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian and I off air, we're talking about how I am not allowing anything in my life right now. So we will get into making fun of me in a little bit. But I really want Brian to take the stage and introduce himself to anybody who doesn't know who he is. And if you don't, make sure you know who he is, because he's an amazing human being. He's part of our team, and he's doing many other things. And he's writing books and doing retreats. And his story is amazing. And let's see how he can relate this to allowing, because I'm sure he has parts of it that could definitely relate.
Absolutely. First of all, Michael, it is such a joy to be here tonight with you. And I was so looking forward to it all day, and it's a real gift. And hello to everyone who's watching. I'm Brian Bachand, coming to you from Toronto, founder of Evolution, which works with professionals and individuals and organizations to help them evolve and be aligned to their greatest and highest potential. And yes, it's a real joy to also be part of Annie Lieb LLC as VP of Inner Peace. As probably of all the titles I've ever had or ever been given, that's probably my favorite one. So very creative. And it's a real joy to take people deeper into their own breath of life so they can live freely in who they are and embrace and own who they are. So that is who I am. And when Annie reached out to me a couple months ago, remember she wrote and she said, love to have you on to speak about one of the letters. Pick the letter that resonates. And I remember I got this right before I got on the subway one day, like I got her message, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, what letter? Like, what letter resonates? I'm going through. I'm like, okay, begin, that's good, all this stuff. But the one that just immediately I connected with is allow. Because for me, they're all magnificent, and I resonate with all the letters, and we all need them. But allow is really where the rubber hits the road for me. Allow is when you're in the thick of where you are. Allow is about not controlling when we want to control because we're fearful, because we want to know the answers. And if there's anything that I work with every day, it's allow, and to allow that. So it's something that's been lifelong. So I said, anything that's going to be a relevance is going to be allow. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you tonight about it.
It's ironic, right? Because I talk about how this one is the hardest one for me.
Mm-hmm.
My whole life, I would have said through is the hardest, right? Because I never went through anything. I went around everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm at a different place in my life and I go through things pretty much every moment of the day, being a single father of three, I'm just waiting. We're just waiting for, Sid or somebody else to make an appearance. Hey, Jeremy, nice to see you. Allow is this thing that evades me, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people, I'm so strategic
Mm-hmm.
in business, right? But in my personal life, I need to somewhat have plans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if the plans fall through. I don't care if they shift or I have to adapt them. But I like to be able to make plans around things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as everyone that has known me over the last 17 months of this joyride, if it's one thing the universe keeps teaching me is stop making plans.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time I make a plan, it blows up in my face. So we were talking about business and how, things are moving forward, we're growing, and the timing isn't working right for my needs, right? My personal needs, because I'm a selfish prick. right? So my personal needs aren't, meeting the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, like even saying it out loud, I almost laugh at myself today, right? Because it's like, who the heck am I? Who the hell am I to like say that it has to be done around my needs? So I've been looking at places in, around Philadelphia, right? Because that's where I'm going when I'm done with this, and I'm looking forward to getting the kids settled. Every place is falling through. Every place has been a different issue. I have another place that I'm doing a virtual tour of tomorrow, and it's very interesting because I never thought it was a fit. So I'm looking at this place tomorrow, and after talking to the real estate agent, they said, you know what? Yeah, it might be. Right? Because they've had 3 other applicants fall through at some point.
Okay.
I was very transparent. My credit is destroyed. My credit is lower than, probably lower than a 16-year-old that has never had credit. This last 17 months has annihilated my credit.
Mm-hmm.
Being here stranded, trying to take care of the kids, not, COVID, not making money, like everything full, So like I look at this, and I also had a hotel booked, right? Because I made plans, and I'm like, okay, I'll be in this hotel for 2 weeks. It has a kitchen, has a separate bedroom. Fine, I'll be all set up. I can live with that and set everything up from there.
Right.
So today I broke down and I canceled the hotel because I'm done. I got to stop with the plans. I have to stop with them. It's driving me. It's not the pressure of life. It's the pressure of these fictitious plans that I'm making. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that. It felt like a whole book. It felt more like a mini series. I don't know about a book. It easily could be a trilogy, what I've been through. And ironically, I write these posts and I write these short little things. I tried writing this story, and about 30 pages in, I was only about 3 weeks into this 17 months. And I decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing it because it's just not my thing. Someday a ghostwriter will do it for me.
Yeah. Or it's just not the right time. Or it's not the
right
right time. You're in the midst of a huge transition right now. You have 3 beautiful children and souls to take care of. There's a lot going on in the business. Don't force it. It's not the right moment. It will come back to you when it needs to come back.
Yeah, and I'm finally finding peace in that, right? Like I'm finally allowing myself to find peace in that, right? Like the whole concern was, what's going to happen with the court case? Is that going to be okay? Am I going to keep my kids safe after everything I've been through? And that works out. But I don't even enjoy that working out because I'm so busy planning for what I have to do next. And the universe is kind of looking at me and saying, you think you're making plans. You need to enjoy this one for a minute first. And just taking a step back and just being okay with it. Right this moment, I'm being okay with it. I think it's your presence as the VP of Inner Peace to be able to bring that out in me, because I've been struggling with it all day, like nonstop. It's been making me nuts. So,
yeah, when we're in positions, and I've certainly been there, trust me, like I have been there so many times, that when you're in a moment of transition and you desire something so bad to move forward, and you just see it, but it's just taking longer. It's like walking through cement and it's hardening, and you're so anxious about how do I pull my foot up out of the cement so I can move forward, and it's there. That's where we start going into like the planning, the controlling aspect. It's just a real sense of trusting that you are where you are in the moment, and things will come to you. The more we keep planning, the more we plan ourselves out of the situation.
I always say, right, like I was never a controlling person other than controlling myself. Because mine was, before I dealt with the abuse and dealt with the trauma that I went through, it was always about controlling my pain tolerance, which I'm sure you understand also, right? It's all about controlling that pain tolerance and controlling the narrative around it. So for me, it was, how do I allow the potential of pain, right? And I'm slightly clairvoyant. I'm definitely claircognizant. I definitely have these gifts and abilities. So me seeing all these potentials and me seeing timelines and me seeing what is coming down the road doesn't help my not wanting to control, right? It's like, ooh, this is going to be painful. How can I stop that?
Mm-hmm.
And I literally spent 30 years doing that. Like, because my gifts came at 4 years old. So that was the first time I woke up fully into my gifts and having nobody around me to understand that. So that was quite entertaining as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you got to remember too, I mean, and you know this, and everyone who's listening knows that too, 30 years of a certain behavior, 30 years of a trauma that you've been trying to suppress and control and to soothe. It's not going to take another 30 years to move in that healing, but it is going to take some time while you allow yourself to be in that experience and learn new ways. And that's, that's all of us, that's all of us. And it does take that period of time, and you just have to be open to that. And when I have found when I'm going into like crazy control mode, which happens like the other morning, like crazy, like, you joke, VP of Inner Peace. Well, I wasn't Mr. Inner Peace about like last week. Like I sat down. So I'm in the early stages of working on my book, and it's great. And it's all about honing in the core message. I went out and got my morning coffee, and I had this beautiful thing. I said, I'm going to sit at the cafe with my little notebook, and I'm just going to finish out the core messaging and all this stuff. Then I got this brainstorm of like, okay, now I need to like formalize it. And I came back and I had a Zoom at 11 a.m. It's like 10:20. And I'm sitting at my kitchen island on my laptop thinking, I got to get this core message done by 11 o'clock because I have the Zoom and I need to have it done. And it wasn't happening. The more I kept forcing the message and I was getting frustrated, the words weren't coming there. And finally I said to myself, I was hating everything that was there. I was frustrated. The book's going to be a disaster, everything, catastrophizing at a tsunami level. And all of a sudden I said, Brian, I'm controlling this. You have to allow, there's something else that needs to come out. And it's a simple thing, that someone might be thinking, but when we get in those moments of such frustration at ourselves or the situation, it's because we have to realize there's something else we may have to learn or be exposed to. And that's the grace, that's the light, that's the breath that we have to allow in.
Where I'm at today, right, and what I've learned on this journey is when I get into those spaces, it's about controlling my shame against myself, right? Because I did all that blame and shame and guilt work with the Brene Brown stuff, and I went through it all, and I did it diligently like a crazy person. 6 notebooks, 6 5-subject notebooks. Like, wow. You want to talk about cleansing stuff? I cleanse, right? Like, and this is still while homeschooling 3 kids and having them with me 24/7. I still did it because I was up at 4 a.m. every morning. I did it for 2 hours before they woke up. I did it 2 hours after they went to sleep. I made fast work of healing because I spent so many years avoiding it, right? And when I put my mind to something and when I'm inspired to do it, I do it. So when I look at now, when I really reflect on what I'm trying to control, right now, it's me failing as a father because I don't want to get up there and have nothing set up for them. I don't want to get up there and feel like it's the wrong decision because nothing's in place. I don't want to feel like this ultimate failure to the world that I survived these 17 months and then I go and I try and give them a fresh start and it doesn't work out. Now, the reality is I've spent 17 months fighting for my kids' safety, doing everything right, working on myself, aligning myself. So walking into this, I know it's all going to work out. So why the heck am I trying to control that middle timeline? Like it seems so silly, but we fall into that.
But it's not silly. But it's not silly. And I think you have to give yourself some self-compassion there. That
not my strong point either.
Yeah. But it's true. But we need self-compassion in that moment. Like I think one of the things, Michael, 17 months and you've been so open and sharing your story with so many that I know it's inspired so many individuals who are going through situations maybe similar, different, but it's important. You're also in a moment as you look forward, it's important to say goodbye to where you are in a healthy place right now too. although you're so ready to put the foot on the gas pedal and get out of there and get them to the new place, it's also been a sacred place too.
It has. One of my spiritual guide, right? Which I don't know if I ever introduced you to her, but
No.
But so she said to me yesterday, she goes, "You're finally ready to leave hell." And I said, I gotta say, it's become like a hellish oasis.
Yeah.
At the same time, while I've been isolated and trapped,
Mm-hmm.
I would have never have done this work any other way.
Of course.
I was so engulfed in avoidance and my escapisms and everything else. I would have always found an excuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to let you answer David's question, because I think this is a good one, and I'm not sure I have insight to offer.
Well, I'm happy to answer David's question in a second, but just to close on something you said just a moment ago too, I think one of the ways we can allow ourselves to be in the place we want to be in, that we're not there yet, is to celebrate where we are in the moment. And I think by celebrating, wow, 17 months of being here, like I have my 3 beautiful children. Yeah, it's been tough as anything, and there's been challenges, but we got to celebrate. I have my 3 children. The most important thing I did desire. I have this new life that's there. That's important to do. And that does change the energy for what you want to attract. So.
And to close it out before we get to David's question, I don't want to ignore that, but it's right in line with this. There was a tremendous cycle, right? A generational cycle within my family and within my karmic cycle, my spiritual cycle of children being abused, because I was abused as a kid. Mm-hmm. My father did not know how to protect me, even though he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And when I was 40 years old, he took me aside and said, "I'm sorry that you were abused. I'm mm-hmm. sorry that we told everybody you were a liar. I'm sorry that, that I couldn't protect you more, but it's the only reason I didn't leave your mother." And, at the time, I took it as a slap in the face, because now you're blaming me for not getting divorced also, right? Mm-hmm. Now, after going through these 17 months, I also understand it was the best way that he actually could emotionally express himself. Mm-hmm. And now I broke that cycle by saving my children. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that until it was the day of court, after the judge agreed to it, even though it didn't get finalized till today. So I'm officially divorced as today, in case anybody cares. My number's on my profile for anyone who cares. But and I'm going to the Northeast, so I'm only a train ride away. But the more I think about it, it's like the day of court, when I walked out of that courtroom, my in-laws were in town who were on my side. So this was a very weird circumstance. They actually took my kids and drove to go grab food somewhere, like a lunch, breakfast, whatever, breakfast, lunch thing. Weird was my ex-wife was there too, so that was strange. But besides the point, I was alone for the first time in a very long time. And I just broke into tears. I didn't know how to process what just happened. Mm-hmm. And they ended up going back with my in-laws to the hotel where they had a pool and everything else. And I had that drive home from that town 45 minutes by myself. I cried the whole way, Brian, because it was this release like I've never felt in my life.
It's a healing.
And it wasn't until writing that later that night, journaling, writing, whatever, what I do, I don't consider journaling, but that's besides the point. It wasn't until later that night that I truly understood what it was about. And it was really just breaking that cycle and actually fulfilling the protection of my children. And it was a very overwhelming situation. So I want you to answer David's question, because I've ignored it long enough.
Sure. So let me take a quick peek here. I'll just read it out loud. How do you go about discerning when to take charge and take action, and when to let go and allow everything flow to you? David, that's a great question.
I'm not the guy to ask. Ask Mr. Inner Peace here, because it's not me.
So I think, first of all, when to take charge and when to take action, when to let go. The most important thing and I just can speak from where I'm at, right now. One of the most important things is to allow where you are is to be aware of where you are. And that's really important because the first thing is to allow what's happening to me. Just like, Michael, what you shared, about the drive home, you had to allow that to happen. That's a lot to process, to allow it out. And only after that was released are you able to then decide, okay, what do I have to do next? Where am I? So you have to allow where you are to know that, number one. And then when you're in that moment is also, that's when you start to have some clarity, as you start to allow that to be, whether it's talking it out with a professional, a therapist, a coach, writing, wherever that is, that's usually where you start to get the clarity about the next inspired action to take, and what that means. When we think take charge, we think control. They think it's kind of a nice way to say it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like take charge. Well, yeah, it actually means to, sometimes be responsible. Take charge is more about being responsible about what you have to do. But that's really, I think you have the clarity when you allow it to be, and you allow that to inform what is the next inspired action. You usually know what the right thing is when it's not inflamed with a sense of fear, or it's not inflamed with a sense of like, oh my gosh, like a sicky feeling. When there's a peacefulness, and sometimes it's a nudge, that's usually when it's the right moment to take the next action. So it's a great question. We could have, that's a
whole show all in all.
That's amazing. Actually. Yeah, I love that, David. That's great.
And after listening to your response, I guess I do kind of have an answer, right? Like, I didn't think I did, but maybe I do. For me, living in my core values every day, right? And we have this thing where me and Annie call me hyper-acutely self-aware because I'm nuts, and that's how we turn my over-analytical mind into a positive.
Mm-hmm.
But when I really think about it now, today was my breaking point in trying to control, right? The last 3 days, it's been all about controlling.
Mm-hmm.
What it was, I felt nauseous this morning for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
My body started having a reaction to me trying to control. And I think that was the sign to let it go, because I'm definitely not nauseous now. I'm probably eaten 7,000 calories since then. So, but I think that's, for me, how I know. It's like the intuitive knowings of when my body is slightly off, right? And
Absolutely.
How my body's reacting.
Yeah. The body will always inform you. I always, with the clients I work with and people I say, we are mind, body, and spirit. Yes. And you can't separate it. You can't, that's why when people, professionally, that's why they start having issues sometimes, because they push down certain areas. It will always come back. It's always going to come back. And the body always will inform you. People say, oh, I have this pain, there's a stress, you're nauseous. Well, yeah, that's why. It's a reaction on that. And it's a sign to pay attention to it. And, I know for myself, if I'm in like a controlling mode, or if I got into something over a period of time, that it's usually my back. Like it just, no matter how many yoga stretches and spine stretches are not going away, it's usually because it's attention. And okay, I have to pay attention to that. Yeah, the body is always going to signal that. Always.
Well, I mean, did you ever see the documentary called Heal?
Oh, on Netflix. It was excellent.
Well, it's on Prime now. Now it's on Prime, which is the only way I was able to watch it.
Okay.
Because I don't have Netflix. I pick and choose what the benefits of my subscriptions are. But like that movie explains so much, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The way that our mind, cortisol, stress, and all these chemicals create physical manifestations within us.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes back to the energy around us and how we clear that, how we cut cords, how we hold our space, our space pure, and we protect it. Like we need to protect ourselves and our energy.
Yep.
And there's this, I mean, this could obviously go into a whole nother conversation, which I love these rabbit holes, especially on Annie's channel, because nobody on this channel gets that from her. I love rabbit holes, but this is, you know, it's funny how there's been so many times I've sat around with chest pains, right? For even weeks at a time. And then the minute that I stop stressing over something, or the minute that I let it go, like, it's completely gone.
Totally.
I've gone to the hospital before because I thought I was having heart attacks. And they're like, you're just psychosomatic. Like, we can crack your chest open, but it's not going to do you any good because there's nothing wrong with your body. And, you know, for a while I thought I was a hypochondriac because I used to just manifest physical things wrong with me.
Sure.
And it's amazing how we do that to ourselves without awareness. And
huge. You know, you're probably familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you've heard it. Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. He speaks about that a bit. For anyone who's listening who isn't familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, he wrote a great book called Becoming Supernatural, and it's just incredible about how our body, you know, does manifest certain things that we have and how we can change that and how we have the power within us to do it. It's really incredible. And it's something that we have to pay attention to. You know, we really have to pay attention to that, because the body, the spirit, the mind, and especially when we're under stress.
Oh, yeah.
In transition, that's when it's going to get triggered at a very deep level.
I know nothing about transition, so, you know, I'm not going to pretend I do. I feel like I've been getting birthed now for 17 straight months, trying to fit through the 11 centimeters or 10 centimeters. As we know, I'm a little overgrown for that. It's crazy though. Like, it's what we put ourselves from. We don't realize how much we control in our own lives. That's the other part of this. Like, Annie and I, when we were creating this, and as we went through our journey, and we started seeing this soul-centered place that we've coined, right, which is this personal freedom and fulfillment and inner peace. Right. We started, like, there was like a 3-week period where every day we would be texting each other 10 or 15 different ways that we're controlling ourselves. Because it's these little microscopic things that then turn into these big things, because they just like keep building themselves. And it becomes this crazy just experience of when you have that self-realization of what you're putting yourself through. It's amazing. The awareness is so important.
Absolutely. Well, you know, when we do that, we want to feel safe. That's why we control. We want to feel safe. And there's a part of us that's disconnected, like the little Brian, the little Michael, there's a part that's disconnected from feeling safe at some point. And that's why we go into that place. And, you know, it's going to get triggered. And it's a sense of, rather than going into the controls of it, sometimes just to acknowledge it. Okay, I recognize. Like, I'm feeling in this moment. And that's like going back to the great question earlier. That's when you have to be in that moment of like, okay, I see what it is, but what's the next step I can take that's positive, you know, rather than controlling it.
And I don't think we always have that answer either.
No, not always.
It's okay not to. I think it's okay to pause. And I think it's okay to just take a step back, observe it objectively, act like you're not even part of it, and then really say, what would you tell your best friend, right? Like, because as a coach, I'm the last person to take my own advice. So sometimes that's what I need to do, is objectively remove myself from the situation and really say, you know, what would I say to anybody? Like, you know, why don't I talk to myself that way? You know, like, why am I treating everyone better than myself? And where am I missing some of my worth if that's what I'm doing?
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important that every single human being needs someone in their life, whether it's a partner, a spouse, a friend, a coach, a therapist, whoever, that's going to give you the honest truth. That's going to be direct and honest. And, you know, I'm telling you, I know in my life, my partner is the greatest gift for that, because there are moments where I'll be like this and be like, you know, I think you need to look at it different. And I'm like, what do you mean I have to look at it different? But it's the truth. And it's so powerful because it comes from a place of love.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow. And it's really great. And it's taken a long time to get there. You know, there are times I'd be more defensive, you know, inwardly, like, well, you know, I know what that means, you know, but no, you don't. And I've allowed myself to trust hearing what is said, as opposed to fighting it or doubting it. I allow myself to receive it in a place of, there's something here. And if I listen to it and pay attention to it, it's probably the right thing for me to now take action on.
So I'm not as graceful with listening to it. I'm nowhere near graceful giving it. But I do have to say that I do have that person, right? And
it's great.
Know, Annie and I are that for, you know, we are that for each other in so many ways, and very fortunate to have that bond and to be able to live within it and have that truth, right? Like, you know, shut the hell up and look in the damn mirror. Like, you're sitting here and you're back at that blame shaming, right? Or pointing the finger, or, you know, look at yourself. Like, what are you doing to yourself? Or why aren't you, you know, having self-care? Or why aren't you being more compassionate with yourself, right? Because it's not something that I'm great at. That's something I hear a lot. Not as much as I used to, but I still do. And I think it's difficult at times, right? Because even allowing ourselves to just be in certain feelings is very difficult.
Totally. That's very hard, because we want to control not feeling the pain. Like you said earlier too, who wants to feel pain? You know, no one wants to feel pain. I don't even like when I get a headache. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll be, like, it's like, you know, here it goes. No one wants to feel pain, and no one wants to feel emotional pain. Like, that is so deep that you want to numb it to the core, whether it's through alcohol, drugs, sex, relationships, shopping, whatever it is. You'll do anything to numb pain, especially when it's deep inside. And so, it takes courage, it takes vulnerability, and it takes a sense of saying, I need to just be open to starting to look at this. I don't know where it's going, but that's really important. Yeah, it's natural. It's a natural resistance. Who wants to feel pain? No one.
Yeah, and the other part is, who wants to feel fear, right? Who wants to sit in fear and identify where it's coming from? Because that's a big one, right?
It's a huge one.
Like, who wants to sit in that fear and allow themselves to be scared, to go deep enough to understand the real core fear? You know, my fear isn't being a bad father. My fear is making a mistake that I can't fix. Right? My fear is harming my children by making this decision, or not making what's in the best interest of them and doing it for different reasons. But then I really look at it, and all that is an irrational fear. Because I've been
here. It feels real, but it feels so real.
Oh, it feels suffocatingly real. It's that. Absolutely. It's that. That vice around your chest and your neck feeling. And then when I do make mistakes and, you know, wiggle or wobble outside of my core values, I start getting that feeling too.
Yeah, sure. Right? Fear is like the gang member. He's like the leader of the gang. You know what I mean? Fear shows up, and fear is always the leader. But fear has other gang members, you know, that like circle you. You know, it can be self-doubt, it can be shame, it can be, you know, the wonder if, you know, the gang member that's always like, wonder if, what if you do this? Wonder if you do that? What if you don't get it right? You know, constantly doubting as you're getting beaten up, you know, in this brawl with all these members. But something that was said to me by a coach that I hired to work with me last year, he said, behind every fear, is what's seeking to emerge in our life. There's something behind every fear, that there's a truth, something very good that wants to come out. Not that it's necessarily related to that fear, but there's something behind there that's seeking to come out in our life. That when you look at that fear, when you allow yourself to be there, and that's the hard part, there's something usually very positive and healing that wants to come behind that.
That's interesting. I don't think I ever looked at it that way. But then again, I spent most of my life never allowing myself to feel the good, right? So for me, it was always, oh, something good happened. Let me move on to the next thing before it disappears, right? Like that's how I lived my life. That was my habits and patterns and those routines, right?
Sure.
So I almost have a bigger fear when something good happens than when something bad happens. Because when something bad happens, I know I can get over it. When something good happens, I'm scared it's going to get taken away. And that's like the deepest thing I'm working on currently, is allowing myself to live, thrive, and feel in the good.
Yeah. And it takes work. It takes work to be in and to be there, and to choose every day that you want to live in that goodness and to be there. Yeah, it's really important.
The highest the value at stake, the higher the fear to lose it. I'm not sure if I'm scared I'm going to lose anything. I'm more scared that something bad is just bound to happen. Kind of like a Murphy's Law type thing, where every time something happens, it's going to just happen to me, right? And it's this paradigm that I always put myself in, which then led to me manifesting it, because that's what I was expecting. So my role today is to work on not expecting that bad thing to come next. And I'm getting better at it. It's still there. It's still there. What's the hardest thing that you're working on currently? I'm curious. I never thought I'd ask this question, but I'm curious.
Yeah, the hardest thing that I'm working on in terms of allow right now.
In terms of general. Let's go in general. Then we can narrow it down to allow. We'll come back to allow.
You know, I think the hardest, so one of the things that I'll share this, that I launched my company, it was on November 11th, 11/11. I picked that date on purpose. Everything went live at 11/11. And on the 11th, it was great. And that was something I was controlling. So talk about control. I was all about that. The company had to be launched in October on this other date. I created this date out of like nowhere. But it was just, I was determined it has to be in October, because my ego was like, I need to get it up. People need to know. And it was taking a little bit longer. And I had to just accept that. And one day I did a meditation in the morning, and I was writing in my journal about I just surrender when the launch is going to take place. And I said, we decided it's going to be in one more week or something like that. And I remember at that moment, I got this nudge, like intuitive nudge, to look at my phone. So what's the date? And it was 11/11. And I said, okay, now it makes total sense. So sometimes when we allow it, it means even more. So on the 11th of every month, I do a little mini retreat. I review my company, where I'm at, where my energy's at, et cetera. And I do it usually, I did it yesterday at 11 a.m. So 11, 11 and 11 a.m. And one of the things I'm struggling with, I'll be quite honest with you, is, I have, my company, and there's a lot going on, but there's a list that goes forever. And, I'm really organized. And I'm really good at administration, but I'm really good. I love doing podcasts. I love working with my clients. I love business development. I love all this. And I'm trying to find the balance of delegating that and what's the priority and how do we go with that. And I struggle with that, because my deepest desire is to do some other things, the projects that I really want to focus on. But I've allowed these other things to creep over. You know what I mean? Because I feel that's where I need to have it. If I don't do this, that's going to fall down. And I've created that. So yesterday when I did the retreat, it was like, Brian, you need to recreate, like from the very beginning, co-create how you want to live your day-to-day life. And easier said than done. You know what I mean? When you have invoices to send out and emails to return and stuff. But that's something I struggle with, because I'm an achiever and I like things to go through and I have high energy, so I want to get things done, but I struggle with that. So today, it was funny. It was a great day, but I still have things on the list. And I actually just put my hands around, I don't know, about 5 o'clock. I just put my hand over it. And I just said, I surrender all these things that haven't been done. And I know that I will be given and guided the moment to do it or someone else to complete it. And I let it go. And so I'm really trying to do that more. And that's something I struggle with. You know what I mean? And what happens when I try and get really into that, I get kind of like, those horses in Central Park. I lived in Manhattan for years. Those horses that walk around those stupid blinds. That's what I'm like. And I become like a force field. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this is where I need to be. That's not healthy. Who wants to be around that? And so it's something I'm always working on, always, especially in the day-to-day of like the business and being there for clients.
So I guess that's a way of controlling and not allowing also, right? Because
totally.
It ties in perfectly.
Totally. Yeah. When I was in the seminary, I remember we used to get these reviews every single year, right, from the faculty. But then they used to send out questionnaires to your classmates and things, and they did reviews on you, and that was submitted as well. And I remember one of my classmates, he came to my door one night, and I was just focused on my list I had to write a paper or something, and he came to the door. He just wanted to talk for a second. And he said, I remember I got the review from him, and he goes, Brian, when I went to the door that night, it was like a force field of ice. Like he said, it was just like, I'm in my zone, and like, you were respectful, but it was there. And I remember I really took that to heart, and I said, I never want someone to feel that. And why am I allowing myself to be like that? And I really worked on it. And any moment when I get back there, I remember that night, saying it was like a force field of ice and being aware of that.
See, I don't get that way about tasks, right? For me, when I go into that tunnel vision, it's when I'm in creation mode. Like when I go into creation mode, nothing. The building could be falling down around me. I can have Sid crawling on my head, Thomas throwing a baseball at my face, and I won't flinch because when I'm in creation mode, my magic is so on point that it just radiates and stops everything around me.
Amazing.
Like, it's not a negative force field. It's this overwhelming flux of positive light and love. But I also can't be spoken to at that point because I'm so in my zone. My creation mode is so powerful, and that's what I went into with Danny when creating this, because we went into this zone where honestly, it felt like 6 weeks straight, every day, 12 to 14 hours a day. We were working on this. Like it was work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep. Like that was it. And we created this from nothing within the last, since March, like really the first week of March.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
And like it became this magical machine of its own now. That now with others coming to the table, it's being infused with everyone. And it's becoming this safe space for all of us to come together and breathe more light and bring more light into the world and reflect it outward. And it's been this really magical experience with everyone involved. And it really is beautiful. I'm so fortunate that I listened when it came. And so fortunate that she listened when it came, right? So, because we were both in different spaces at that point. And when we aligned at that moment, we knew exactly what we had to do, and that was it. Like, it just took off.
Yeah. And when things are supposed to be, that's one of the things that going back to, again, I keep going back to that great question, because I really like that question that was asked earlier. When you allow yourself to be in that moment and, you're in there, that's usually when you take that action or you need to move forward, things just flow and really go easy. And that's, I've worked on a recent project too. And I'm telling you, it's been incredible just how it's flowed and clicked and one thing after the other. It's been amazing. And that's when you're in the right place. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, why am I not allowing that in other areas too? So you have to be there. So yeah, it's always a good reminder. Always a good reminder.
It does bring back that question though, right? Like, why do we resist it in everywhere else in our lives? Mm-hmm. And I guess it's because we're human. We're here to learn lessons. So
totally.
Until we learn them, we're going to keep getting hit in the head with it. So,
yes, and that's it. And that's why we allow it, because like I always say, there's a reason why it keeps coming up. There was a client today, that was sharing something. I said, there's a reason, because there's something you need to keep learning. And now you're at a moment to start to see it. And it's for all of us. So yeah, same thing.
It's pretty amazing. It really is. This whole process has just been magic.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you for, I know, for myself, it's powerful. You've shared so honest, from your heart, from your soul, with Annie and all your lives, week after week after week. And I know for so many who are listening, how that impacts their life. And I think now more than ever, the pandemic, one of the gifts has been this ability to connect with people at a different level. And that's something that you brought into the world. So that's really powerful.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that. And you, I mean, we've always had these conversations. It's just this kindred soul, right? Where we're just on this journey to impact the world to the best way that we can.
That's what it's all about.
So thank you very much for tonight.
Hey, thank you. I hope you're a little more peace out here. No.
I am. And I'm glad that I got to do this one instead of Annie. So, this was a good one.
It worked out great. It really did.
I appreciate it. And have an amazing night, everyone. And I'm going to hit the intro again before I forget, because she'll kill me.
Don't get in trouble.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I'm always getting in trouble, but I'm trying not these days. Have a good night, everyone.
Breath framework. B, begin where you are. R, reclaim your power. E, excavate your core values. A, allow, not control. T, through, not around. And H, healing. The breath framework, a way of life.